Greetings, everyone. Here's a game between Igor Gulkov and Hikaru Nakamura. Hikaru has white and Igor has black. And so we're going to look at this game. It's only just a few moves. Igor resigned after the 22nd move. But we'll take a couple of looks at the end and see what some scenarios could have happened if the game would have continued. But both of these players are rated over 3,000 or maybe 3,300, 3,200, something like that when this game was played. So anyway, it's an amazing game. So Hikaru moves his pawn up to b3 to get ready to fianchetto, and Igor answers doing the same thing. And so Hikaru does indeed fianchetto, and Igor answers with his knight getting up. And Hikaru immediately takes the knight, causes his opponent to double pawns, which I would have done the same thing. That creates a weakness. And so he moves a pawn up to e3, and then Igor takes the center, and Hikaru answers with the queen's pawn up to d4. Now, Igor gets his bishop out, and I do that. I see why someone might do it, at least my level, is if you have this behind a pawn, people may not pay attention, and if you have something here, you could move the pawn forward and cause a threat and have a discovered bishop attack. I'm not sure that's why I did that, but that's something I might have done. So Hikaru continues his development and gets ready to do another fianchetto, which he does. So it's a double fianchetto, which is really, a great thing to do. There's a lot of power in that. It's surprising to people. And so now all the pieces are off the back row for both players, and Igor moves his knight again, and Hikaru gets a pawn up, going to attack. And now Igor puts his knight into, he's getting his knight to be able to cause trouble in Hikaru's territory. So he moves his rook over to look at this file here, and Igor castles, and Hikaru gets up here to threaten this bishop, which would cause, having to get his pawn out of the way. And so what happens here, when Igor puts his queen here, he's looking right at this knight, and this knight is looking at the knight. Really, you're going to have to move the knight somewhere, because there's no way. If Igor had taken the knight, then there's no way that Hikaru could have taken it back, because the queen is looking at that square too. And if Igor had taken the knight here and Hikaru took the queen, he would have been losing a knight. So instead, Hikaru just takes the knight, and now we have, a 4 pawns in a row, which can be a pretty strong structure depending on what's going on. So Hikaru takes a pawn, and he takes, and now we have, we have an open file. We have the rook that was there preemptively, and he takes the pawn, and now we have a partially open file here, and we have 3 pawns in the middle, and we have 2 in the end. So Hikaru, in my mind, is way ahead of the game right now, but the engine says they're right about equal. So Hikaru puts his bishop up here to threaten this pawn, and Igor moves over to protect the pawn, taking a look at it. So instead, he gets his queen up. So Igor moves his bishop back to the back rank to offer a little more protection for his king. And Hikaru begins to move his pawn up. And instead of taking here, he moves his pawn there to threaten that piece and makes it a little more complicated. So Hikaru takes, which leaves this open, And then Igor takes, and now look at this queen. This queen can come up here and cause trouble for the king, and of course get ready for a checkmating scenario. Instead, Igor moves his rook up, which looks good to me, but the engine says it's a mistake, and the uh, the little bar swung way in favor of white, like 75%. No, more like 90, whatever. So then this is the game. This is the game-winning move. When Hikaru made this move, is brilliant move with his bishop, that is when Igor resigned. And you can see why he might have done that. There's several scenarios. If the king had moved here and Hikaru had moved there, the king didn't have much of an option, so the bishop could have come here, and Hikaru could have taken the queen, could have taken the rook, and he would have been way ahead. And then it's just a matter of time to what he would do. So this queen could come here to trade, and in which case Hikaru could bring his bishop up, and he could take, and then he could move here, and maybe this gets this pawn out of the way so that he couldn't take it, could come up here, and then begin causing trouble. So it would be a pretty simple matter to, this would probably get out of the way, and you take this pawn, and the king would be in checkmate right there. So that would have been a checkmate scenario. There's several other checkmate scenarios in this particular game with at that point in the end. But the key move is this brilliant move by Hikaru that caused the game to be over. But maybe you see some better ways that the game could have ended rather than the one that I showed. Of course, he could have taken the bishop, and then the queen could have gone up. Anyway, but there's just like 4 or 5 different ways that it could have happened. Anyway, fantastic game. Hope you like it. If you're still here at this point, I invite you to subscribe and let me know in the comments what you think about this game. Have a fantastic day. Talk to you later.